Okay, joining me now is former Victorian Liberal Party President Michael Kroger and former Labor Senator Stephen Conroy. Good afternoon to you, gents.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty to discuss today, but sadly we're on a time restraint as usual. Let's start with the WA Premier Mark McGowan's remarks. He has ignited a war of words, shall we say. Let's take a listen.
The states and territories that want to eliminate the virus, I think, have the right approach. The idea that you tick along with the virus and somehow that is a better model is wrong.
I don't believe keeping your borders closed and inflicting pain and suffering on thousands of people is the way to go.
Michael, what do you make of those comments?
Ms Berejiklian is right and McGowan is wrong, and McGowan is playing to this lowest common denominator of the secessionist undercurrent, which has always existed in Western Australia and many people on the Conservative side, and friends of mine, I might add. But this whole view that WA doesn't need the rest of Australia and they're all a bit of a burden on Perth and the rest of WA, that's sort of the undercurrent he's playing to. It's all very well when you're basically an island state and most people come to your state come by plane or ship. I mean, in New South Wales, they're driving across the border all day long as they are in Queensland and Victoria. So it's a lowest common denominator comment based around his desire for re-election shortly. And I think his comments are unwelcome and unworthy of a Western Australian Premier, quite frankly.
Stephen, the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian said today that other parts of the country should be grateful for New South Wales, given that New South Wales has welcomed more than 100,000 international travellers. Many are from WA as well as other parts of the country. Do you think it's a case of other states and territories should be grateful?
Look, all of those points that Gladys makes are absolutely valid. But look, Mark McGowan has taken a page straight out of the Trump playbook. He can find no one to have a fight about the border and whether it should be open or not in Western Australia. The Western Australian opposition have self-immolated and no one takes anything they say seriously. So he can't generate a fight politically before his election with the local Liberal Party. So he just says something completely outrageous, not even factually accurate in terms of the other states that support his position aren't engaged in elimination strategies. And even Daniel Andrews has said, this is saying, no, we're not. And he's generated a news story for himself, which will play brilliantly on the news is tonight. He's got a big national fight going, defending the health of every Western Australian. Brilliant politic, but straight out of the Trump playbook.
Michael, his comments, though, have huge ramifications. His actions have even broader ramifications, slamming these borders shut so quickly and for so long with such a high expectation on the rest of the nation. I mean, I'm frustrated talking about it still because I can't believe it's still, this is the situation that we're in. It's putting hundreds of thousands of people, it's messing with their lives.
Sure. I'm absolutely fascinated by Stephen Conroy's comments. I mean, for a senior former Labor figure, and dare I say, Stephen, without, indulging in idle praise, one of the most successful federal Labor politicians of his generation, to be so severely criticising McGowan, that is a major story. And I must say,
good try, Michael. Good try.
No. You've attacked a Labor Premier a couple of months before an election, Mate, you're absolutely correct. He couldn't fight anyone locally, so he started a fight with Gladys Berejiklian in New South Wales over not a lot, in order to get a national headline and appeal to that, as I said, that secessionist underbelly within WA, which is, the rest, and that view always is, as we know, the rest of the country are a great burden. He's my brother, but he's very heavy. He's a great burden on Western Australia. We'd be better off without these people, and they don't know how to handle the virus. This is the McGowan playbook, and I think you're right. This is Trump writ large by McGowan. It'll appeal to Western Australians, but it's lowest common denominator stuff. And quite frankly, he should be condemned. He should be condemned.
He's got 92% approval rating for his position. There isn't a Liberal that will say boo about this and disagree with him. So he can't generate the debate in Western Australia, so he goes national. It's brilliant
No,
politics in the lead up to an election. Brilliant
I agree
politics
with
in the
you.
lead up to an election.
You're right. Shameless, but brilliant politics.
Well, speaking of Trump, since you mentioned it, he could become the first president to ever be impeached twice, so perhaps not a great time for the WA Premier to be following in the path of said president. He'll be remembered for many things. Stephen, did you ever think he'd be remembered for this and for what we saw at Capitol Hill?
Look, I think the stain that he's now put around him, and I've now talked to senior Democrats and senior Republicans who are always in the never Trump category. So they've had a very straightforward position. And they feel that he has done untold damage to his own legacy. The fact that he was gloating and walking around the White House watching it on TV, the fact that he didn't call in the National Guard, police lost their lives because of Trump's inactions. So he has disgraced himself. He's set the Conservative cause back in America many years. The scenes, I've been very fortunate. I've walked those corridors. I've been on the floor of both of those chambers. They are historic. And the significance of carrying the Confederate flag into the Capitol, the Confederates weren't able to achieve that during the Civil War. Look, he has put a stain on democracy and a stain on his legacy that I don't think can be scrubbed clean no matter how hard he tries in the next 10 days.
Michael, how do you think the inauguration will play out?
Well, I think it'll go as I was at the last one for Donald Trump and sat not too far from him. But look, Mike Pence is going, and it'll proceed as you would normally expect, albeit without Trump being there. But look, just back on Trump, I always think one of the things in life is try and surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, because there's a lot we don't know. And what Trump did was surround himself with people who weren't as smart as him. And politically, he wasn't all that smart, which is why he's ended up in the mess he is today. This man, given some of the great policy successes he's had, particularly in the Middle East and with the economy pre-coronavirus, the whole America first, free trade, etc., he's had some outstanding policies. But his own personal stupidity, as Stephen Conroy said, has led him to this position where there's a stain on his presidency. If only he'd been smart enough to say, there's plenty I don't know about politics. I will hire a Karl Rove or a serious political operator or operators. I just think of some of the Australians he could have had advising him, Linton Crosby and Andrew Robb, or Brian Loughnane and Mark Textor, some of these great people that were around the Howard government for many years, smart and decent people, honourable people, but very smart politically. If he'd hired one or two of those, he would have been re-elected in a landslide. But no, what does he do? He carries on complaining about the election result. Well, as you know, as Sky viewers know, Stephen Conroy and I said on day one there was no fraud and none will be found. Yet he carried on and on and on and made a fool of himself. And now he's ended up in this terrible position where he's not even going to the inauguration of his successor, which is, not decent of him. So he's got himself to blame, I'm afraid. Very disappointing end to what was, a presidency of some very good policy successes.